Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Several years ago, Mazda and Fiat announced they'd be co-developing their next generation of Roadsters together, that Mazda would build the cars on their Japanese assembly line, that being the Mazda MX-5 and the Fiat 124 Spider, and that's what we've got right here, an all-new 2017 model. Now, one of the things that Fiat promised us was that it would have Italian style, Italian performance, and true Italian Roadster heritage. So my question is, does it? Before we get out on a test drive, I do want to talk about styling just a little bit, because that is the defining factor of this car more than anything else. As you can tell, this does not share a single piece of sheet metal trim or detail with the Miata. It's its own car when it comes to styling. And the big thing is right up front here, we've got the facial features, the DNA from the original Fiat 124 Spider. It does have a modern take though. We've got a larger grille, of course, for modern engines. It's turbocharged, so there has to be air to get in there for the intercooler. We've got fog lights down below. We've got modern day headlights, which are projector beam. As we come around the corner here, this is a mid-level Lusso model, so it has 17-inch alloy wheels. From this angle, you can also see that Fiat went to great lengths to really differentiate this from the Miata. As we come from the front, the fender line and the rear hip line here, much higher, a little bit more avant-garde. And as we come back here to the rear, these taillights, very much reminiscent of the shape and the styling you remember from the 124 Spider, the classic. They're canted up a little bit. Down at the lower fascia, there are dual exhausts, and up here on top of the deck lid, a nice big red Fiat emblem, kind of a retro touch there. As we look toward the cockpit, you can see there are some similarities visually with the MX-5, that being the roll bar elements behind the seats and the sound shield, and when that tops up, it is identical in silhouette to the MX-5. The interior is one place here that I think Fiat just said, Mazda, you're in charge, because it's 100% identical to that of the Mazda Miata, except for a couple of pieces of trim and a few finishes, maybe a pattern on a seat. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing. So let's get to the good stuff first. First thing is, it's very, very comfortable. You can sit here and drive this car literally all day long and never get tired of sitting in this chair. These seats are very supportive, they're exceptionally comfortable, and even though there aren't that many adjustments, you almost don't need them. Now, as I sit here, I will point out I'm about 170 pounds and 5'9". The seat is all the way back, and the steering wheel does have a tilt adjustment, but it doesn't have a telescoping adjustment. So even at my height and size, I'm sort of getting to the outer limits of what's available here for adjustments. So if you're closer to 6 feet tall, maybe 200 pounds or more, caution, it might not be so comfortable here. But if you're in the medium to lower size category, you're going to find this really fit like a glove. Now, let's talk about what's not so good. First of all, storage. Now, you expect there's not going to be a lot of storage in a sports car like this, but there's no traditional glove box down here, and they did have that in previous Miatas. Instead, back here behind me, they have a small glove box that's about the size of, well, pair of gloves or two. There's not really a lot of space in there. The other thing is the cup holders. Two cup holders located right back here behind you, not in front of you where you can reach it, but behind you. And because of their location, when you're driving and you're trying to reach the radio controls here, which are also located in a bizarre position, you're constantly banging your elbow into these things. Now, I will point out, because some of you may point out to me, you can move one of these cup holders down here, which is nice for you if you're driving by yourself. But if you've got a buddy sitting here, their knee's going to be smashing into that all the time. So still not a terribly good design. But the main part about it is they're constantly, at least for me, my elbow's constantly hitting that. And even if they were back there and I was trying to use it, it just doesn't work very good for hot coffee or anything that you might want to put back there. Trunk space here is actually a little bit larger than it is in the Miata, which in the current generation Miata is actually not too bad. It's what you'd expect in this class. Now, one thing I will point out is there is no spare tire back there. One of the reasons that trunk is reasonably sized. Here, you get a can of Fix-A-Flat and an inflator, the emergency roadside kit. Now, when it comes to scoring this interior, really, it's very similar to how I rated the Miata. Storage, ergonomic design, not all that good. Comfort, very good. 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is another area where I really wish Fiat would have had more input, because Fiat Chrysler Automobiles has some great infotainment systems. Their Uconnect, even the systems in their Fiat 500 are much better than what we have here from Mazda. And if you've watched my videos before on Mazda reviews, you know this system and we don't get along too well. And here's why. This is a touchscreen up to about 5 miles an hour, at which point you have to use the knobs down here and the buttons. Okay, so first of all, you've got the ergonomic issue of the cup holders and bumping your elbow into it. But the other thing is even if not for that, this system with these knobs and buttons and the menus that are here, it's difficult to use, it's difficult to understand, and it's not intuitive at all. It's like the people at Mazda never actually used this before they put it in their cars. You have to go 2 and sometimes 3 menu levels down just to do simple things like tune a station, tune your presets, or even find the presets to begin with. It's just very frustrating to use, and it never defaults to where the natural order of things lies, at least for me. So I can't really speak very highly of this. The other thing is the sound quality. This is a convertible, a premium car, a boutique car. You'd expect a pretty good quality audio system in here as a base system, and that just isn't the case here. It's got a scratchy sound, not very high wattage, and when you have the top down, it's just very difficult to get good sound out of it. You've got headrest speakers here, and quite honestly, I had a 1990 Miata Package B that had the headrest speakers in it, and this really doesn't sound any better than it did back in the day. So it is a little bit of a disappointment here. So infotainment gets 3 out of 5 stars. Early on, Fiat promised this car would have an Italian soul, and that it does, because under the hood is the same 1.4-liter turbocharged multi-air engine that you're going to find under the hood of the Fiat 500 Abarth. Very popular engine there. Here, a little bit more power than we're going to get in the Mazda MX-5 Miata at 160 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. That torque number particularly larger. So the question is, how does it go? Nice. Got a nice kick to it. Woo! You can really feel that torque. And even through this 6-speed automatic transmission that I have here in my tester, admittedly not my first choice, it works pretty well. This engine seems to be pretty well suited to it. Now, one thing I will say is that I really wish they would have given this a little bit more of an exhaust system, say, similar to what you're going to find in that Abarth, because, well, this is the Italian Roadster. You're paying for the Italian Roadster experience, and this has no exhaust note whatsoever. It'd be nice if it had something a little raspier, a little bit more, something you can hear from in here. But that said, this powertrain is just as pleasing to me as it is in the Miata, the naturally aspirated engine they have there, even though a lot of my fellow journalists didn't quite agree with that. I think this engine's nicely suited to this car. It's got plenty of pep, although not quite as free revving as that Mazda engine. Now, fuel economy, I got 30 mpg combined, which is 1 more than promised, so I'm very pleased with it overall. It gets 4 out of 5 stars. Out here on my favorite back road, this car is every bit as comfortable as the Mazda Miata. It's got a nice ride, it still has the same sharpness in the steering, it still has the same handling finesse as does the Miata. Even though the suspension tuning is slightly different, and it does feel a little bit heavier, it still has the goodness that a driver that likes the Miata is going to appreciate when you lay it into a corner. It just sort of fits it like a glove. It's just got a nice communicative feel. There is a little bit of cowl shake as we go down this less than smooth road, and the wind noise in here, well, you do have to raise your voice at times, even with these windows up. But if you're just out here driving by yourself, you're really going to enjoy what this car has in store. For chassis, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. On the topic of quality, one thing I have to say is the partnership between Mazda and Fiat here really does pay off in that regard, because here you get the Italian Roadster experience with Japanese car quality, and that's not a slam on Fiat or Italian cars in general, but let's be honest, if you've ever owned an Italian car, you know that they're, I don't know, a little bit eccentric when it comes to build quality, fit and finish, and maybe even reliability. Here, you're pretty much going to get everything you expect from Mazda in terms of fit and finish, build quality, and materials throughout. Therefore, quality comes in at 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Fiat 124 Spider, I think my big takeaway here is that if you like the Mazda Miata, this is another option. It's styling. It really is mostly about the styling. Yes, the powertrain's a little bit different, the overall feel of it a little bit more subtle, I think, but when it comes to living with it and actually being out and spending time with the car, it's every bit as nice and every bit as sweet as that MX-5, just a different flavor. That's really where it's at here, and the value very much the same. Just under $30,000 here, mid-grade. I think it's really hard to find any other Roadster in this class that you can get for this price that offers everything it does and that quality level. Therefore, value, I put it 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4 stars for the review. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Woo! Well, my friends, if you like the test drive, click on the big red link right here and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We test drive 1 or 2 cars a week, plus there's a new video almost every other day. There's always something new, so stay tuned.